Welcome back. Ladies and gentlemen, the issue of environment is catching a lot of attention these days. It remained at the backdrop of many international problems that we have been facing, but now once again, due to some problems that we are facing, we are talking more about the environmental issues, and one of the problems is the flash floods. Recently, flash flood have swept out 65 districts in India, out of which 17 have declared a state of emergency. 2,000 dispatched teams have been dispatched, rescue teams have been dispatched to help the people in the areas affected by the catastrophe. 9.5 million people at large are affected by the problem. In Bangladesh, the problem is even more severe, where the rain has broken record of 122 years. Amid all of this, what we hear from the international leaders are hollow statements and empty promises. We have therefore invited in our program today an expert who will talk about the issue of environment at length. I am privileged to be joined by Dr. Asif Javed. He is an environmental expert scientist, PhD in environmental sciences with over 18 years of experience in the field. Dr. Asif, I welcome you to my program.
Thank you, Shabahat.
We are talking about the issue of flash floods, and apparently the recent example is what has happened in India and Bangladesh. Tell us exactly what and how it has happened.
First of all, this news was very disturbing, not only for me, but for the rest of the world, because these are the developing nations. As you already mentioned, 9.5 million at large are affected, which is a quite big figure. Almost 4.7 million people only in Assam are homeless, they are affected. More than 100 are dead. So this is basically, I was watching your program, so earlier Tariq Farhadi, or former IMF advisor, Tariq Farhadi, he used the word calamities of nature, but I would rather use the word, this is basically nature's wake-up call for us. This is not a natural calamity, this is actually what we have done in the past. This is basically the outcome of our ugly development and the consequences we are facing right now in this part of the world.
The floods are increasing as evident with almost every year. I mean, we see a catastrophic flood hitting one part of the world or another. Just last year we were talking about China facing one of the worst floods in the history, and now India and Bangladesh are collectively facing something that has broken record of 122 years.
Yes, Shabahat, scientists long ago predicted these type of unprecedented floods. This is basically the outgrowth of the climate change, but we are not sure when it will occur. Basically, in case of floods, we look at the hundreds-year records, but scientists long ago predicted that we will face these type of consequences. Actually, we have now entered into the era of consequences. This is not the era of debate, so we need to take some practical actions. And this region, South Asian region, this region is particularly vulnerable. And Pakistan is, if I quote the example, I don't know exactly the ranking of Bangladesh and India, but if I quote the Pakistan has been consistently ranked among the top 10th vulnerable country that is likely to be affected by the effects of climate change. So similarly, these countries also are part of South Asia. 1.3 million people are living in this region.
1.3 billion.
Billion people are living in this region. And they are underdeveloped. They don't have resources to cope with these type of situations. Maybe West have resources. If these type of floods occur in their countries, for example in UK or in US or any country you could name, maybe they have financial resources, they have technical resources. But Shabahat, the people in these regions, they are really poor. They are developing nations. They don't have resources to cope with these type of calamities. And again, I will stress on that. This is not basically a calamities of nature. This is the nature's wake-up call for all of us.
Now you said, I'm sorry to cut you here, but you said that it's particularly the case of South Asia. Now, are you more concerned about South Asia when it comes to rainfalls and flash floods, primarily because these countries have monsoons?
This is basically a unique region of this region, and we are thankful to Allah, we are thankful to God, because Allah has blessed us with a lot of these type of resources. We have Himalayas, we have largest ice reserves other than North and South Pole. So this is blessing for us. But again, with the passage of time, when we have increase in temperature, there is a phenomena that's called orographic lifting of in the mountains. That's more vapor into the air due to the Himalayas mountain. So we have more temperature, we have more vapor going into the air, so we have more intense rainfall. And rainfall will not, and that's called flash floods. More intense rainfall in shorter period of time. So water does not have a time to soak into the ground, to absorb into the ground. So what happens? All water will run off. And second thing is, with urbanization, there is a process that is called a lag time. Lag time is basically the difference between the event of rainfall and flash flood. So with urbanization, the lag time decreases significantly, which can also intensify the situation of flooding in this region.
Now, Dr. Asif, since you have mentioned it to be a byproduct or a consequence of the climate change that we are facing, what are, in your point of view, or according to your expert opinion, the major issues of climate, the major subtopics of climate change that needs more of our attention?
There are many, Shabahat. Like for example, water is becoming the major victim of climate change in terms of quantity and in terms of quality both. Then agriculture, then human health, and then there are so many things that are, and then floods you can see like that. Then seawater intrusion. There are so many things. Climate change is basically affecting our each and every segment of the society. And ultimately, burden will fall on the poorest of the poor who don't have resources to cope with the situation, to face the calamities of nature, as Tariq Farhadi mentioned earlier, which I said this is not really calamities of nature. This is basically nature's wake-up call for us. So the problem is, poorest of the poor is more affected, which needs to be understood by the developed nations. You know, we have increased the number of environmental refugees. Earlier in your program, you're talking about Afghan refugees, but here I'm talking about the swelling increase in the number of environmental refugees whose land are eroded by the flash floods, who don't have a clear land to grow their crops, where they will go. And ultimately, burden will come on each and every person on this planet Earth. So this is our responsibility to take it seriously.
Now, as we discussed last time in our program when we invited you to speak about the issues of climate, we were talking about the major commitments made by China, United States, India, the countries that pool in more resources, as well as the countries that contribute most of the carbon emissions. What exactly has happened thereafter? Have these countries actually lived by the promises with regards to the carbon emission and other controls that they committed?
Well, Shabahat, efforts are underway. Obviously, people are trying, but more rigorous efforts are needed. And I believe personally there should be a clear division of policies for developed worlds and developing world, like Pakistan, India and Bangladesh, particularly for this region, especially in Africa and all those countries. The difference would be that developed nations should focus more on the commitments they made in the Paris Accord for the reduction of carbon dioxide emissions, and at the same time the developed world should focus more on the adaptation measures so that they can adapt themselves to the consequences of the climate change, as it is the practical examples of what actually happened in Bangladesh and India in the last week. So they need more resources, more financial help, more technical advices on the adaptation. Why I'm telling this? Because you see, the emission of these countries are very less. I don't know exactly what are the emission status of India and Bangladesh, but Pakistan, I know Pakistan is emitting less than 1% compared to the rest of the world. So how much we can reduce? But Pakistan is...
And which country is doing the most of these emissions?
China, United States, Australia. Obviously, these are the countries' view. We are emitting more. We need to be rationalized with the world in terms of, carbon dioxide emissions.
So have they been able to live by the promises that they made in the international conference? Do we gauge these promises? Do we gauge these commitments every year? Do we have a mechanism for it?
Yes, there are treaties, obviously, and they have some binding agreements by which they are bound, but certainly it requires a lot more efforts. It requires more practical approach. If I take the examples of US for last 20 years or so, US is not taking interest in the legal binding, in the compulsory reduction of carbon dioxide. He backed out from Kyoto Protocol and later on from Paris Accord. So, and he believes in the volunteer reduction in the carbon dioxide or greenhouse gases emission.
Has this not changed with Joe Biden?
Yes, he backed the US into the Paris Accord, but still, we have wasted a lot of time. So, while looking at the US, Australia also have the same type of attitude. So attitudes are developing. So this attitude needs to be changed.
One more important geopolitical factor, Dr. Asif, that this program primarily is dedicated to the geopolitics. And we see that with Russia and Ukraine's war getting prolonged, and with Russia sanctioning more of the West with gas, I mean, they're not providing gas and fossil fuel and the oils to these countries. The use of coal is rising constantly. Now, looking at the graphs, it tells us that the price of coal has exacerbatingly coming high with each passing month. So don't you think this is going to trigger the carbon emissions further and going to take them to a larger level, particularly when Europe, that is hub of economic activity, is going to use less gas and more coal?
Shabahat, this news is very disturbing for all the environmental scientists, because coal is kind of an old technology which emits more. So we need to move forward rather than backward. So if the consumption of coal increases with this crisis of Ukraine, that will be again a big disaster. And again, we have more emissions into the air, unexpected emissions basically, which is not in the circle. So again, this is quite distressing.
And we also believe that the sea levels are rising to an alarming level, which is going to cause problem for many of the countries that have long coastlines.
Shabahat, there are two phenomena. Basically, sea level rises because of two things. Directly due to the effect of climate change or increase in temperature. For example, with increase of temperature, the sea expands, so it rises a little bit. And second phenomena is when the ice melts and it goes into the seas. So it rises dramatically, particularly when the land-based ice goes into the seas. The sea level rise there's a more rise as compared to the sea-based ice. So this problem is particularly more important again for the South Asian region, particularly because all the ice we have in this region is a land-based ice. When that land-based ice goes into the sea, so obviously sea level will rise dramatically. And sea level, it doesn't matter only, the sea level is not important, because seawater will also intrude, because we have a less water in the groundwater, so seawater will take a place of groundwater.
And what exactly do you believe are major challenges for Pakistan with regards to the environment that is getting more polluted? And what exactly do you believe we need to do as a nation to come out of these challenges quickly?
First of all, we need to change our attitude. That's the most important to each and every individual, because it's not a time to think, to formulate the policy. We are in the era of consequences. So we have to take some practical steps. Like for example, for Pakistan, we need to conserve water. We need to go for resilient agriculture. We need to go for like these type of renewable technologies also. Although Pakistan is emitting very less, but it will save other environmental pollution problems that is resulted due to the emissions of greenhouse gases, carbon emissions, and SOx and NOx in the air. So all these things.
Thank you very much, Dr. Asif, for being guest in our program. Ladies and gentlemen, this was my last guest in the program, and he has made some very pertinent points. One of the points that I believe is the takeaway of the day is that we are living in the era of consequences. We do not have enough time to plan and enough time to think. Another important thing that he said is that Pakistan is in the list of top 10 vulnerable countries when it comes to environment. Pakistan needs to respond to these calamities and to these challenges as possible. We'll join you tomorrow again with another program. And until then, Allah Hafiz.